Grüezi ragazzi, bienvenue and welcome to another one of Cannabisciencia's LinkedIn Live. To everybody in the audience with us at the moment, thank you very much for joining us. To anyone that's going to check out the video at a later point in time, also a big thank you to you for taking the time to check out our video. We hope that you like it. We hope that you enjoy it. We hope that you leave this session having learned something new. And I guess without further ado, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Cannabisciencia first and foremost. Cannabisciencia aims to tackle the bottlenecks of the medical cannabis industry by implementing technology and education for healthcare professionals to overcome the hurdles of prescribing medical cannabis in medical cannabis markets around the world, primarily Europe, but also in Latin America, Asia, all over the world where medical cannabis markets are developing. Earlier this year, we've actually also released a Principles of Clinical Cannabinology Handbook. To get more information about the handbook, please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen at the moment. You see here on the screen a little overview of the different chapters. It's about a 700, 800-page book and covers everything that a healthcare professional needs to know to feel comfortable with implementing medical cannabis in their practice. Just go back one more slide also to provide an overview of some of the services that we offer, which range all the way from accredited healthcare professional seminars to regulatory support, scientific research, professional training for company staff, as well as medical marketing for companies in the medical cannabis space. To learn more about these services and get in touch with us, please feel free to scan this QR code. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest today and start by giving him a very big thank you. Of course, as you see today, we're going to be discussing increasing cultivation output consistency through lighting. And I'm very pleased to welcome my friend and colleague from the industry here, Jörg Meyer-Brenken from Fluence. So Jörg, first of all, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us here today. Really appreciate it. And of course, we've had the opportunity to speak off camera a number of times. We always bump into each other at the different cannabis events and also kind of in preparation for this session today. Of course, we're discussing increasing consistency through lighting in cannabis cultivation. But I think with the way that the industry has been developing over the last little while, there has, of course, been more economic pressure on companies in the space than ever. We see, if we look at Europe, for example, or Germany, we see compared to maybe 5 years ago, suppliers bringing products into the market here from countries that we didn't even have on the radar really a few years ago. Countries such as Latin America, or regions such as Latin America, South Africa, New Zealand, some of these places providing products that are cultivated in circumstances where the cost to cultivate these flowers is significantly lower than, let's say, Spain or Canada, also taking into account logistics and all other kinds of costs. And so this pressure has kind of created a scenario where it has become increasingly more challenging for companies in the space to survive and remain profitable. And it all starts with the cultivators. It all starts with the price that the flower is able to be sold at per gram, and it all kind of trickles down from there. And so apologies for my monologue here to get our session started today, but I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be discussing today, and also talking about how innovative technologies and best practices in the cultivation stage of the supply chain really dictates what happens all the way down the line. So first and foremost, Jörg, thank you again, and maybe I could ask you to introduce yourself and kind of get the ball rolling.
Yeah, thanks a million, Bijan, for first of all having me. Thanks for the opportunity to be on your platform. Yeah, I'm Jörg Meyer-Brenken. I work for an LED lighting company called Fluence. for over 5 years now, and we have been focusing on lighting cannabis. We also work in the commercial agriculture space, meaning growing tomatoes, herbs, cucumbers, but our legacy is in cannabis, and that's what we want to talk about today. I'm a lighting engineer by heart. I've worked in different lighting industries before, but since I've discovered that also plants need a lot of lights, actually, I think I found my home in when it comes to lighting. So I'm really happy to be here today. I think you said a lot of very true things about the market. The pressure is rising a lot. Growers need to be very sharp in how they grow the product, how efficiently they grow the product, and also the quality of the product becomes more and more important as we see an oversupply. So in the end, what will or who will survive the market? The ones that produce high quality at reasonable prices. So if we look at a few factors that influence the grow, then lighting is the most, let's say, driving factor, the motor of the whole operation, right? The more light we have and the better the light quality is, or the more appropriate the lighting conditions are for the plant, the better it can perform. There is a lot of other factors that we will touch base on later, but lighting is kind of the lead figure that determines the success and the quality of your operation. So if we look into maybe the first slide, Bijan, then what is the ultimate goal? Do one more, please. What's the ultimate goal is we want to produce enhanced and consistent phytocannabinoids and terpenes, right? This is what every grower starts the journey for. We want to serve our clients, our customers with a high quality end product. And for that, as mentioned, we need light. Naturally, light is provided by the sun, and but we need to, and then we only grow one cycle, right? Naturally, one cycle is grown outdoors, but in our industry, we need to increase the cycles per year. And in greenhouses or in complete indoor farms where we completely grow in a controlled environment, we need to supplement the light with an artificial light source, which in our case is an LED light source. And if you move to the next slide, please, Bijan. When we look at the plant, as I described already, it's mainly driven by light quantity, but also by light quality. So these two factors influence both plant biomass as well as the quality and the morphology of the plant, meaning how the plant looks like, how the flower looks like, and how the terpene and cannabinoid profile will be in the end. So first of all, if you want to increase your productivity, you need to up your light level. We know cannabis is very light tolerant. It's naturally grown in the Mediterranean area, in the highlands of Afghanistan. So in very sunny and warm environments. So cannabis can process a lot of photons and gives you back flower in high quality and in high quantity if you do everything right, or if the conditions, let's say in general, are perfect. So the quantity is, in our language, what we call the ppfd level, so the photosynthetic photon flux density that goes down on the plant. And then also, if we look at what the sun provides, it's a wide full spectrum. And if we're in a greenhouse and we are coming towards the winter, then we see that light conditions go down and we need to supplement the gap, right? What we have as a gap in winter, in autumn, in spring compared to the summer conditions. And it's our task as Fluence, as a lighting provider, to close that gap and to ensure consistent growth throughout the year. We do that for cannabis mainly using a broad white spectrum that looks white as the sunlight. So we don't want to jeopardize quality in changing the quality of light, because the quality of light is reflected also in the quality of the crop. If we change, for instance, to higher efficient spectra that, for instance, are common in commercial agriculture, like a pinkish spectrum with a high red content, if we do that in high intensities, then we would see deficiencies on the cannabis plant. Meaning that it could change the terpene profile, it could change the cannabinoid profile, and it could also lead to effects that are known in the industry as photo bleaching. Pardon. One other factor that we use to steer the crop is the light duration, also called photoperiod. Cannabis is a short day crop, meaning when a certain number of day length is undercut, it will start to flower. So it recognizes in nature by shorter days that it's running into autumn / winter. And so the plant reacts with the flowering cycle, meaning it understands I need to reproduce myself, so I'm starting to flower. And that is a tool that is used in the industry to do multiple cycles per year. Meaning when we switch from an 18-hour cycle that we use in the vegetative phase of the plant to a shorter 12-hour photo period, the plant will flip into flowering mode and will start producing flower. So in short, or to summarize what we just learned, is light intensity, also quantity, influences the plant biomass or the flower production in volume. The light quality controls the morphology of the plant and the morphology and the quality of the flower. And the cycle time, how long we need to get a finished plant or a finished flower on the plant, is controlled by the light duration, the photoperiod. So if we look at the next slide, we can understand how light is distributed in a greenhouse, for instance, over the course of a year. You see here daily, a daily chart that every bar represents the light dose of a specific day throughout the year. And what you see here is, if we look at the blue line, which could be our target in lighting, right? We would like to see this amount of light every day in the year. Then we see that we have a couple of days where we oversupply, but also a lot of days in red where we undersupply the need that we have set for our crop to get, which in this case is 35 mole per square meter and day. And with a controllable light source, we can adjust the light levels to that 35 mole bar and fill the gap in the missing photon, so to say. And this ensures consistency, because any deviation from light conditions will result in deviations in flower quality. And this, by the way, is not only true for light. All the other factors that influence the grow are also to be set as consistently as possible. When we look at those on the next slide, Bijan, please, then we see, for instance, on the right, I've noted down a couple of things that also irrigation and fertigation play a big role. The plant's needs always need to be fulfilled, and we need to operate the climate conditions in a very stable way so that the plant is provided with optimal conditions. And we've already discussed that lighting conditions are very important. And for now, we have talked about the general intensity, but also when we look at a more granular space, such as the canopy itself inside a greenhouse or inside an indoor farm, then the lighting conditions have to meet certain requirements. So we need a uniform light distribution. So light should be in the same intensity level everywhere on canopy. So this in theory is easily doable. You just need to apply the lights in a way that you get a uniform light layer at a certain height. In practice, as you can see here, is we are not lighting a uniform surface, right? We are dealing with a plant material, with a biomaterial that grows into different directions and into different heights. So what we need to try to do is we need to try to also maneuver the crop into, as you can see on the right way, into a into an architecture that allows for light to be applied homogeneously. So the light itself needs to be homogeneous, but also if the crop from underneath grows towards the light in the most homogenic way possible, then we create that environment that will allow to grow consistent. On the left side, you see, if you imagine you had a 1.5, 2 meter high plant, then naturally the top levels would get most of the light, would provide shadow for the lower levels, and on the bottom, almost no light will hit the plant leaves, which means also that you have different crop quality from the top where you have high potency and a lot of biomass to a mid-level where you have lower potency, a different terpene profile, and less biomass to the bottom level where you have a very different very different yield when it comes to quantity, but also quality could be very different from the top levels. So ideally you try to shape and select varieties that offer you a more like a candle holder that you can see on the right picture, a more praying to the light kind of architecture that allows for the crop to absorb the same amount of photons in a condensed canopy. So with that, we ensure, and the industry speaks about A, B, and C, C class buds. With that kind of techniques and uniform lighting, we can assure that cannabis growers harvest mostly A and B buds that are in the same kind of quality range, and also provide a different, let's say, possibilities to sell, because C class or C quality is not something that you can sell as flower to the industry. This typically is used to extract. And if that is not your game, then you need to make it your game, because you have this biomass and need to get rid of it, right? Kind of, and so this is really something that that we have taken up, absorbed into our DNA to allow our customers to use our tools and to provide best quality for their clients and for their offtake. So any questions so far, Bijan, from the audience?
And not from the audience so far, but one thing I wanted to ask you, Jörg, is for any cultivators that are listening now, or that may be checking out the video later, and they're hearing you say some of these things, and they may have some kind of lighting system installed already. How can a cultivator kind of look at what they have and identify if it's worth kind of changing the system or doing that upgrade, especially since we said right now that there's this economic pressure on the industry. Everyone's, of course, also being very mindful with how and where they spend money. But how would you kind of, how would you maybe advise anyone in our audience to go about that?
That's a very good question, actually. One thing is that I've kind of claimed a lot of times in the past is stop guessing, start measuring. So buy a light meter, buy a par meter, so you can understand what's happening in your grow. Um, Check for light levels, for ppfd intensity, and check for uniformity. These are the two figures when it comes to light that are most crucial. And if you don't have a white light, then if you're still growing with HPS, with sodium technology, which is kind of the legacy technology, then for you there's a lot of upside in the game. There is about 40% energy savings possible, if not more, depending what kind of year your HPS lighting is from. If you have really old ones, then probably 50-60% energy savings. And also when it comes to control of the crop, you can really make a difference by using LED technology these days. So measure with a par meter your conditions and start to understand where you have deficiencies in your lighting conditions. And also, again, shorten your veg time, grow smaller crops, grow more plants per square meter, stop growing trees. Those will lead to an intra-plant inconsistency. And if you want a batch to batch consistency, and if you're operating a greenhouse, then also make sure you set a reasonable DLI target that I mentioned before, and that you up your light levels in the dark seasons to that very set DLI target. And also, although it sounds ridiculous, but if you then have too much sun in summer, you also need to shade that away because you want consistency. And if you have too much light and different climate conditions, that will lead to a different terpene and cannabinoid expression. So in this case, it's all about measuring, and not only light, right? This is true for all factors that influence the grow. I'm also a big fan of sensor technology. Use battery driven sensors that you can just deploy into your grow. Start to look for microclimates, same as you did hopefully then for the lighting, to understand the uniformity of the light conditions. You should do that also for climate conditions, for wind speed, for any factor that influences your grow should be as stable as possible. And this starts, and this is maybe an interesting anecdote. I got to see chrysanthemum growers earlier this year with my commercial agriculture colleagues, and chrysanthemum is a short day crop just like cannabis. It's just a beautiful flower that traditionally is grown to be used for the mourning period in November, where we honor the dead. And it's one of the few plants that naturally flower beautifully in autumn. So not like most of the flowers that flower in spring and provide us with a nice, colorful summer image. These flowers are super similar to cannabis and grown in a similar way, meaning that they also flip into flower mode when the day is shortened. So these growers have started to automate the cutting process. So the way the cutting of the plant is put into the grow cube, into the growing medium, is automized by a computer. And the consistency of that is overwhelming, because you get the same stem length that is under or inside the growing medium, and it means the amount of roots that are produced is very consistent. And in cannabis, all this work is mostly done by hand. As far as I know, I have never seen an automated cloning planting machine in cannabis. And if you understand that the length of the stem that is covered in the medium determines the mass of the root production, and the root production ultimately is responsible for the uptake of of water and all the ingredients and the fertilizers that help the plant develop and grow. It will make a crazy difference if this surface is 2 centimeters inside the growing medium, or 1 or 3.5. So this is another factor that, in my opinion, will need to be harmonized over the next month and years in the cannabis industry, so we get to more consistent and more efficient production overall.
Thank you, Jörg. Another thing that I wanted to ask you, because you actually mentioned it, I mean, you guys must have done a lot of basically, little studies and experiments and data collection. Could you maybe just touch on that briefly, and then perhaps we could wrap up with the story of your tomatoes?
Yeah.
I thought that was
Yeah.
very interesting. Also, talking about the stem incisions, if you will, into the growing medium. Also,
Sure. Our claim to fame is led by science. Maybe a bit cheesy, but it's as cheesy as it is true. Our growing tools and our growing methodology that we provide to our customers is tested with our own scientists. It's tested with third-party scientists, like renowned horticulture universities like the Wageningen University, Delphi, Proof Station. So these are all institutes that are in Europe and that do research on plants constantly. We have partnered with them to understand, also with a third party that does scientific procedures to analyze results and to gather data to help us and also be an independent third party that proves what we already have found out in our own labs and with our customers. So actually what you see us offering to our customers is backed by scientific results. So if you want to learn about that, you can go to our website. We have a big section that offers white papers, videos, webinars around many topics that are, in my opinion, super interesting for every grower that's out there. We have 2 minutes left. I'm not 100% sure you meant that I threw the parts of the tomato that I cut off into my compost and that it grew like crazy over there and developed roots. Yeah, okay. So I have a little greenhouse and I grow a few tomatoes myself. I obviously take good care of my tomatoes in between my business travels for Fluence, and I've cut a few plant parts away in order to manipulate the crop the best way so it gives good fruit. Threw them on the compost, and a couple of weeks later, from the compost, really big tomato plants grew. And then I realized that the tomato first grew half through the compost and developed like a root system that was probably on 0.5 meter of stem material. It just gathered new roots, and the plant that develops from that immense massive root system was just humongous and produced as many tomatoes outside as the plants in the greenhouse did. So that was very interesting for me to see how vigorous plants can get when the root system is right.
Yeah, when the root system is actually set up to grow freely, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, we have reached the end of our 30-minute live here already, Yuk. I'd like to pass the ball over to you one more time for perhaps some closing remarks, and also just take the opportunity to thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, no, I have to thank you for providing the opportunity on your platform, Cannabisciencia, to speak about lighting. Appreciate, and my closing words would be: stop guessing, start measuring, and enjoy growing. Whatever you grow, enjoy it.
Yes, I have to admit, after the last few conversations that we've had now, I've already started looking into getting a little greenhouse for the garden. So
Here you go.
you've certainly inspired me quite a bit. This was our first session really discussing anything related to the cultivation side of things, and I think that we should definitely connect for more of these in the future. And with that, Yuck, I just want to say thank you one more time. Big thank you to everybody that is in the audience and that tuned in today. And if you're checking it out at a later time, thank you to you as well. If you have any questions for Jörg, you can hit him up on LinkedIn or via Fluent's website. And if you want to get in touch with Cannabisciencia, then just shoot us a message on LinkedIn or an email via our website. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.